your online privacy with NordVPN. Browse securely, access content from anywhere, and keep your data safe with military-grade encryption. NordVPN.com. That's NORDVPN.com. It's not just a glove, it's a 44 Pro. Crafted with dedication, made for performance, and built to last. Get your custom glove today at 44pro.com and experience the 44 Pro difference. That's 44pro.com, 44 Pro.
Our patented handles were launched in 2018. We continue to push the boundaries of strength training. Join us in making your training more natural and effective. Visit Engels90.com to learn more and revolutionize your workout.
Looking for tickets to the hottest shows, games, and events? Ticket Liquidator is your one-stop shop for great prices, no hassles, and guaranteed tickets. Whether it's sports, theater, or concert, for the best seats at the biggest events, start with Ticket Liquidator today at ticketliquidator.com. Ticket Liquidator.
Introducing Bark in the Belly Premium Dog Food. 100% of profits go to help dogs in need.
Over 30% of adults struggle with chronic foot and joint pain, and many face mobility limitations as they age. But a revolutionary Comfort First slipper has taken the wellness world by storm. Try Cloud Slides and feel you are walking on the clouds. Cloud Slides.
Hey there, and welcome on in. It is the Wicked Boston Show with Cam Stuart on 365 Sports. Happy to have you with us as we are still kind of licking our wounds after the Patriots had that embarrassing performance in Super Bowl 60. It's come with a lot of reflection over the last couple of days, and I think the main takeaway was, it probably wasn't a Super Bowl team. Not they didn't deserve to be there. They went through the AFC and they won it. But that, if there's one thing that us spoiled Patriots fans have been able to do over the last 20, 25 years is that we know exactly what a Super Bowl team looks like and what one doesn't look like, at least a Super Bowl championship team. So we will be talking about that a bit today and why I think everyone's getting it wrong about Drake Maye. He was America's darling 5 days ago, and now the narrative has completely shifted in that he's lucky, he choked when it mattered the most, and that he, like Dan Marino and Cam Newton, his hero, will not be back in the Super Bowl. We're going to debunk that, why they will be back in the Super Bowl. Also, real quick, we'll be talking with Q Myers later on in the show. He is the foremost Raiders expert, man. I mean, he does Locked On Raiders. He does ESPN Game Night, National Radio, also does ESPN Las Vegas. Like this guy, we talked to him in the Super Bowl with Pete Souza. He is as locked in with the Raiders as you could be. We're going to talk to him about Maxx Crosby, who apparently wants out of Vegas and really wants to play for Mike Vrabel. So we'll analyze that fit with the Patriots and just get the latest of what's going on with that drama behind the scenes out there in Vegas. And we will talk about the Red Sox moving and shaking. And do they have their Alex Bregman replacement? Because there are some things I like about this deal they swung with the Brewers, but when you take a look at it from a 30,000-foot view, this Red Sox team still has not fixed anything in their lineup. Nothing. All that and more coming up on this episode of the Wicked Boston Show with Cam Stewart. Zach Burke is behind the glass, keeping us on the air 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, live on YouTube, 1 p.m. Eastern time, and wherever you get your podcasts as well. Happy to be part of the team with 365 Sports here. You know, same crew, just changing the logo. I think that's going to be a great thing for this show and maybe getting a little bit more focused on these 3 days a week rather than 5. You know, we're your lunchtime alternative to Boston Sports Talk Radio. That has not changed. But what I think we're going to be able to get out of this is a great focus on the stories that really matter to the fans, from the fans. We're the only show that is doing that in this market. You know, there's a bunch of sports talk radio out there that is not appealing to you, the fan. So what we did was we put a fan behind the mic, and that's how we got the Wicked Boston Show with Cam Stewart. Let's start with Drake Maye, because to me, that is kind of the story of the day, story of the week, obviously, with the Patriots losing the Super Bowl. Let me be clear. Drake Maye was not good in the Super Bowl. Not really by a long shot. I think there's a lot of things that went into that. And we're starting to hear more and more about the injury to the throwing shoulder that I thought was a complete crock at first, but it turns out is probably legit. And you saw it during the game. You saw him playing behind a terrible offensive line, but Drake made plenty of mistakes. Now that Drake Maye did put out the stinker in Super Bowl 60, the jury is in, the verdict is in. Everyone with a microphone seems to be saying now, that's it for Drake Maye. Lost the Super Bowl, had this lucky run. He's overrated, overhyped, not the quarterback of the future in this league like we all thought he was just a couple of days ago. It's going to go the same way as Dan Marino, as Cam Newton, and potentially the same way as Joe Burrow right now. History is not on Drake Maye's side. Those guys that lose the first trip to the Super Bowl rarely get back, and very rarely get back and win. Dan Marino, second year in the league, just like Drake Maye. 23, 24-year-old gets to the Super Bowl, loses, never goes back. Cam Newton, MVP of the league in 2015, goes to the Super Bowl. 15-1 team, loses, never goes back. His career is actually really never the same after that. Joe Burrow, second year in the league, just like Dan Marino before him. Legit MVP candidate that year. Had this great turnaround with the Bengals like Drake Maye had with the Patriots. Loses in the Super Bowl. So far, has not gotten back. So why then this whole week have I been convinced that that's not going to happen to Drake Maye? America seems to be convinced that Drake Maye, one-hit wonder, he won't be back because of how he got exposed by a unbelievably good defense from the Seattle Seahawks. A defense that we knew was unbelievably good going into this one. That's why they were the heavy favorites. But here's the thing. Drake Maye is going to go back to the Super Bowl. This is just the beginning for Drake Maye. Drake is not going to fall into the same pit that Dan Marino and Cam Newton did. These young MVP quarterbacks that go to the Super Bowl, lose, and never go back. That's not going to happen to Drake Maye. And there's a couple reasons for that. The first reason is he was hurt. Like, he still missed some throws that I think he could have made, and he still, like, it doesn't absolve him from all blame of having a bad game. But he was not at 100%. This was a guy who was clearly battling an injury, had to get shot up in his throwing shoulder before the biggest game of his life, and he's coming off a stretch where he had to play 4 of the top 5 defenses in the league all in a row. If Drake Maye was 28 or 29 years old, had put up an MVP season, had won a couple of playoff games before, and then did this, then I think you'd probably say, yeah, he's just not a playoff performer. But to do that after one postseason where you can say the Patriots were lucky all you want, statistically speaking, they had one of the toughest roads ever to get to a Super Bowl with the defenses they faced. I'm not ready to just count out his career after that. Maybe that makes me a homer. Maybe that makes me too much of a Patriots guy, a sycophant, if you will. But I'm not ready to just get rid of Drake Maye's career after that stretch that he just went through, and I thought performed fairly admirably until the Super Bowl. Not ready to do that. But here's another big reason why I think Drake Maye will get back. The reason is this. I want to go back 20 years to Super Bowl 40. Remember that? That's Ben Roethlisberger celebrating winning the Super Bowl in his second year in the league, won it in Detroit against the Seattle Seahawks. And that's what everyone remembers. Ben Roethlisberger, the kid, the 24-year-old, winning the Super Bowl in his second season. What they don't remember is this. Ben Roethlisberger sucked in that game. He played one of the worst Super Bowls a quarterback has ever played. Winner or loser. But especially for the winners. Wasn't anyone worse than what Roethlisberger did. Like, that man was absolute ass cheeks in that Super Bowl against the Seahawks. To the tune of, how about this? 9 for 21, no touchdown throws, 2 interceptions, and a passer rating of 22.6. 22.6 was his passer rating in the Super Bowl. But no one wrote him off after that because he won. Hines Ward was the MVP. That Pittsburgh defense was great. The refs were awesome for them in that game. And so what we remember is Ben Roethlisberger, Super Bowl champion. But even as bad as Drake Maye was against the Seahawks in his first Super Bowl, I mean, shoot, he was better than Ben Roethlisberger. He still had 3 turnovers, but he completed about 60% of his passes, had a couple of touchdowns, and had a passer rating of 79 against a much better defense than what Roethlisberger had to face. His passer rating was almost a quarter of what Drake Maye's was in that game. And nobody was saying after Super Bowl 40, yeah, well, look how bad he was. He's never going to get back there. This is a one-hit wonder. No, they didn't. And by the way, Roethlisberger did not go that route. He made it to 2 more Super Bowls. He won another one. And he's probably going into the Hall of Fame. But when Drake Maye's team scores less points than the Seahawks, then he's done. Write him off. Cooked. Stick a fork in his career. He's not going back. This is why wins are not specifically a QB stat. We have seen it. We have seen Tom Brady have some of the best Super Bowl performances ever in games that he lost. Only one quarterback's thrown for 500 yards in the Super Bowl, and he lost. That's why you can't entirely put it on the quarterback. The difference here was Ben Roethlisberger had a Super Bowl team. Right? He had the offensive line. He got the last ounces out of Jerome Bettis, who was still good. He had Pro Bowl, all-pro receivers. He had a receiver who could throw a touchdown pass for him in the Super Bowl, and he had one of the best defenses in football. Drake Maye, out of all of those things, had like one of those things. And I'll point it out. We'll see later on in this segment. Like, Drake Maye really elevated this team much higher than it should have been. And yet he is the one getting dragged through the coals. He's the one that they're saying will never make it back to the Super Bowl. Roethlisberger played much worse, happened to win, and did get back to another one and played really well. In two of them, actually, but played really well in the one that they won in Super Bowl 43. How about John Elway? Can we bring him into this? Everyone knows Elway lost the first 4 Super Bowls he went to, and then won 2 later in his career. I hope we don't have to wait that long for Drake Maye. But here's the thing. John Elway, in a losing effort, was actually pretty good in his first Super Bowl. He threw for 300 yards. So, Cam, how does that factor into this? We're talking about guys in their first Super Bowl. Well, even after that experience of having lost in the first one and playing well, John Elway was much worse in the next 2 Super Bowls that he lost than he was in the first Super Bowl that he lost. In fact, he was downright awful. He was worse than Drake Maye in Super Bowl 60. Elway, in the second and third Super Bowls that he played in, again, both losses, he completed 44% of his passes, had less than 400 total yards in 2 games, threw 1 touchdown to 5 interceptions. And neither one of those 2 Super Bowls for John Elway did he have a passer rating that was even half as good as what Drake Maye's was against the Seahawks. I'm not trying to find numbers to tell you that Drake Maye was actually good when he really wasn't. But what I'm here to say is, despite what you're going to be hearing about from the national media and the historical trends, just because you stink in the first Super Bowl you play in does not mean that you can't get back and win. Ben Roethlisberger is evidence of that. John Elway is evidence of that. He won 2. Again, man, hope it doesn't take that long. But just because you didn't play well in the first one doesn't automatically mean that you can't get back there and win it. In fact, I even use a Boston example. It's not a football one, but remember how everyone was dragging Jason Tatum in the 2022 NBA Finals? He was not efficient at all. And it was like, oh, this guy was overrated. We knew it. Celtics won't get back. This is a one-and-done thing, especially after they lost their coach. But then they didn't. They did get back 2 years later, and Tatum was awesome to close out that series. Didn't win the series MVP, but was awesome and was the best player on what was the best NBA team from wire to wire that season that won the NBA title. So there is nothing to say that Drake Maye can't get back to the Super Bowl and win it. In fact, I have I'm pretty confident that he will get back to a Super Bowl and win it. This is just the beginning for this Patriots team. To say that they are ahead of schedule is actually underselling it a little bit. The Patriots were supposed to be better this year because they had an easier schedule. They played a last place schedule and they had a better coach. But what they did was they took that schedule by the balls and won 14 games. Had an MVP candidate, runner-up at quarterback, and went all the way to the Super Bowl. This team wasn't supposed to be in the Super Bowl. Maybe a playoff team, the same way the Bears were this year. But then they took down 3 top 5 defenses and got to the Super Bowl. So this team is way ahead of schedule. They have a ton of cap space. They got young guys at key positions under rookie contracts. Your quarterback, your left tackle. You've got the right coach there. You've got an offensive coordinator who is great at developing quarterbacks and is not going anywhere. So I think at this point, it's silly to say the Patriots will not go back in the next 5 years. Because, by the way, 5 years from now is when Drake Maye is supposed to be in his prime. Age-wise, we have not scratched that yet. He's 23. 23 years old. There's such a long way to go for Drake Maye and this Patriots team. I think it's asinine to just sit there and say because Dan Marino never went back, that Drake Maye will never go back. And the other thing, too, I'm hearing as a reason for why Drake Maye and the Patriots won't go back to the Super Bowl is, Cam, I mean, you got lucky with the AFC this year. You look at it in the next couple of years, you're going to have to deal with the big boys again. Josh Allen, who couldn't get to the game to play Drake Maye. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow. These are still the quarterbacks in the AFC. They're not going anywhere. What makes you think Drake Maye and Mike Vrabel's Patriots are going to get past them? Well, looking at all four of those teams, they either did not make the playoffs this year or they reset in the offseason. The Bills reset. New coach. Somehow the same GM. The Bengals should be resetting, but they didn't make the playoffs. They got all kinds of problems. The Chiefs, they're 7-10, man. They didn't make the playoffs. Like that, and Patrick Mahomes got hurt with 2 games left. He played most of that season. I'm not saying like Patrick Mahomes is never going to get back. You know, that's not a dude I want to line up against in a playoff game by any stretch. But the Chiefs have a lot of problems with their roster right now. The Ravens are trying to still find a way for Lamar Jackson to be healthy from one year to the next, and they brought in a new head coach. So out of all of those teams, that murderer's row of quarterbacks that you're throwing at me, those are all good quarterbacks. But Drake Maye's a good quarterback too, and his team right now is in a better position than any of those teams. And that includes the Chiefs. Chiefs got a mess here. When you have Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, anything is possible. But they're in a way. Like Burrow, I love Joe Burrow, man. I wish he was in a better situation some days. But the Bengals are a dumpster fire. And Burrow, much as we all love him, he gets hurt every year. And they're paying too much money to receivers. They never have an offensive line. They don't have a defense. They were awful defensively this year. And they've got Zach Taylor as their head coach. So am I worried about Joe Burrow when he still plays for the Cincinnati Bengals? No, I'm not. I'm not. That's a team that I don't know can get to the playoffs. If Joe Burrow is healthy all season, maybe, because there's certainly a better team, a much better team with him than without him. Baltimore, still trying to figure that out here. Buffalo, Josh Allen is still that good, man. He really is. Just lost his team a playoff game, for sure, against Denver, but he is still that good. But all you heard all year long was that this was the worst roster they've had in 5 years. It's not getting better. It's not getting better right now. Unless they trade for Maxx Crosby, which they're apparently one of the teams that are in on him. We're going to talk to Q Myers in just a few minutes about that, but sticking at the point at hand. Like, those are teams that are not in as good a position as the Patriots are right now when you look at the next 5 years. And again, I think we need to realize this. Like, this is going to sound like a Patriots fan trying to move the goalpost after the fact, but like, Drake Maye elevated that team. When the nation saw, 125 million people saw the receivers, which was a bottom third group of the league, bottom third in the league for that receiver group, even with Stephon Diggs having a good year. That offensive line, bottom 5 or 6 in the league. Run game, at any point in the season, wasn't top 20 in the league. They had a good defense, and they had Drake Maye. with a bad offensive line, a bad receiver group, and a couple of slow tight ends. I think it's crazy to sit here and say that 23-year-old Drake Maye, after the season he just had, is not going to make it back to the Super Bowl because Dan Marino and Cam Newton didn't. I think when you look and take stock at this situation, you know, and how great it was with the Dolphins in 84 and the culmination team that the Panthers had in 2015 and still the talent that Joe Burrow had around him in 21, Drake Maye isn't at that yet. The clock has barely started on his window. They're way ahead of schedule. Drake Maye will be back in the Super Bowl. The New England Patriots will be back in the Super Bowl in the next 5 years. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. We come at you live on YouTube 3 days a week, 1 p.m. Eastern time, and then available wherever you get your podcasts as well. It is your lunchtime alternative to Boston Sports Talk Radio. It's right here on the Wicked Boston Show with Cam Stewart on 365 Sports. When we come back, we have got the greatest Raiders expert that there is on the planet right now. It's literally like, if you want to get people who know about the Raiders, you go Mark Davis. And if you can't, you go Q Myers of ESPN Radio. After this quick break, we're going to have Q on the show. We're going to talk about the drama around Maxx Crosby and what a trade to New England might have to look like to get Mad Max to Foxborough. All that and more coming up on the Wicked Boston Show with Cam Stewart.
Circulon C1 Series Clad with Scratch Defense Non-Stick. Maximize cooking, minimize cleaning. Discover the unmatched durability and elegance scratch-free, worry-free, forever.
At Covers & All, we've revolutionized protective solutions with cutting-edge, customizable covers, tarps, and curtains. We deliver premier protection at affordable prices and express shipping. Visit coversandall.com today for the perfect fit, guaranteed to last.
Send money abroad in just a few steps with Remitly. Sign up with your email, enter an amount, choose how your loved ones receive the money, enter your recipient's information, select a payment method, hit send, and relax. Download the Remitly app today.
Experience the future of secure private cloud storage with Internix. Protect your files with end-to-end encryption, ensuring your data stays private and accessible only to you. That's INTERNXT.com today.
Welcome to Market XLS, your all-in-one Excel solution for investors. Designed as an enterprise-grade platform, Market XLS caters to investment managers, secure and efficient investment management and research. Book your free demo.
What if you could clean clean? With bio-based formulas and deep cleaning enzymes. No dyes, phthalates, or mystery ingredients. Just powerful pods for your dishes and laundry. Now you can, with drops made clean, made to clean.
Back to the show, Wicked Boston Show with Cam Stewart here on 365 Sports. This is the kind of guest you have on the show, and you can't keep him waiting, okay? We are talking Maxx Crosby, Raiders, Patriots, all the buzz around it, and the trade that might be coming through. And so we're getting the foremost Raiders expert. He hosts ESPN's Game Night on ESPN Radio, also does Vegas Radio, does Locked On Raiders. Q Myers, man. Q, thank you so much for taking the time today. How are the vibes in Vegas this week with the new leader?
Everything's good, man. Thanks for having me on the show. Really appreciate it. And yeah, there was a lot of real positivity yesterday when Clint Kubiak was introduced to the media. And, you know, he didn't come in talking about going to win 10 games, didn't come in yelling Raiders like AP. You know, he just came in with the, hey, man, we got to put the silent tape on. We got to look and see what these players are all about. He's sitting at a table with nothing but greatness up there, like Howie Long and Mike Haynes and Charles Woodson and Jim Plunkett and guys like that, Marcus Allen. So He said it's all about getting back to playing football like these guys did that made them the legends that they are and the Hall of Famers that they are. And so it was really cool to see. And, he's not one of those guys that is going to capture the room with the way he speaks or whatever, but he's all about football, man. He's all about ball. And so it's exciting time. He was the last coach hired in this coaching cycle. It was kind of a risk, as Mark Davis told us afterwards, that had to wait until after the Super Bowl to hire him. But, they sealed the deal. And so it's the Clint Kubiak era now with the Raiders. And, we'll see what happens. And there's obviously a lot of storylines, including the one we'll talk about with Maxx Crosby coming up.
Yeah. And I was going to say, everything outside of Crosby must feel refreshing. You got a guy who's talking ball, like you said, he's not grandstanding this. You just saw a team in the AFC turn it around in 1 year. That's kind of how the NFL schedule is supposed to work. Maybe not the Super Bowl, but to get that far, Fernando Mendoza. So I got to imagine vibes are feeling pretty good versus, kind of the revolving door you guys have seen the last half decade or so.
Yeah, it's been one of those, man. It's been pretty embarrassing. I've been here in Las Vegas since 2021, and,
Might have lost Q here. We might have lost Q. I don't know if he's coming through for you, Zach. I'm gonna bump him down for just a second, just in case. But we're talking about the Raiders, Maxx Crosby. This is a deal that kind of got thrown around Radio Row because Diana Rossini went on 98.5 and basically said, Zach, I got Q. Do I got you there? Doesn't look like I'm getting anything from Q's end. I appreciate you, Zach. But this was brought up around the Radio Row Super Bowl 60. Diana Rossini went on 98.5, had talked about how Maxx Crosby really wanted to play for Mike Vrabel, that there was all kinds of drama coming around, this whole situation with the Raiders and with Crosby. And there's been nothing that has fanned the flames here. In the last couple of weeks, last week, I guess, even with Clint Kubiak coming in and being introduced as the head coach, there are now talks that Mark Davis and Clint Kubiak are sitting Crosby down and are saying, hey, man, we're building something here. And I do find this really interesting, this part of it, because like the Raiders have obviously been a revolving door. It's not been good for a while now. And yet, they have more cap space than I think anyone in football right now. They've got the number one pick in the draft. They've got, a quarterback coming in with Fernando Mendoza. That's going to be the pick. They have an offensive-minded coach. And like I just said, you just saw a team that had back-to-back 4-win seasons in the AFC go to the Super Bowl. Like, that's how the NFL schedule shakes out. You're going to be playing last-place teams every week. And I get it. The AFC West is a bit more of a gauntlet than the AFC East is these days, with the Chargers and the Broncos and the Chiefs. I get that. So I'm not saying the Raiders are going to go in there and win 11 or 12 games year one with Fernando Mendoza, but it feels like your timetable is kind of expedited by saying, we've got this schedule. We just saw a team that did this. There are still some good pieces in Vegas, and they will have all kinds of money to go and attract players to come here with no state income tax. We see that a bunch in hockey, don't we? No state income tax and a young quarterback and something to build around. And you can say, hey, we're going to be the next Patriots. I think for Maxx Crosby, though, he's looking at saying, I can play for the right now Patriots. Because looking at what New England has to attack in free agency, pass rushers at the top of the list. I know everyone watched the Super Bowl and you saw offensive line was a big problem, but clearly they need to get after the passer as well. So that's what we're going to be talking about here. Let's talk Maxx Crosby and this drama surrounding he and the Raiders and what that trade package could look like if the Patriots do get involved. We are trying it out again. The greatest expert that we could get on the Raiders, the best expert you can have outside of Mark Davis, truly. He hosts ESPN's Game Night on ESPN Radio, also doing it out there in Vegas for ESPN Radio, host of Locked On Raiders. Q Myers, we bring you on again. We know vibes are feeling pretty good in Vegas right now. So I got to ask you, what is the latest on the whole Maxx Crosby situation?
Well, it seems like it's just TBD at this stage of the game. Maxx Crosby, we saw him yesterday at the press conference for Clint Kubiak, but he wasn't necessarily in the press conference. You know what I mean? He was in the building. I saw him when I walked in, kind of gave him a nod, a head nod. He gave me a head nod back. Clint Kubiak said that he met with them yesterday morning before the presser. He had coffee with them and talked with them. I asked him how important was it to have Maxx in the building and setting the tone defensively, especially since he's an offensive-minded guy. And he said he plans on having Maxx here for a long time, being part of the success moving forward. With that being said, look, Maxx is 28. This is not going to be a turn this organization around immediately. Like, I don't think it's going to be a team that's going to be in the playoffs or Super Bowl like the Patriots were, after 1 year with Mike Vrabel. I don't see that quickly of a turnaround because they got a lot of holes to fill. So, there could be a scenario where Maxx says, look, your timeline and my timeline don't match up. I don't think the Raiders want to move him at all. I think they have no intention of moving him, but I could see a scenario where if he's just not comfortable with what the, like I said, the timeline is, I can see a scenario where he says, yeah, I probably should be moved and see if I can try to go win somewhere else. Maxx has been the ultimate Raider. He's been the ultimate competitor. He's the face of the franchise, but he also is a guy that wants to win. And so I don't think anyone should blame him for, questioning this organization that's had as many coaches as they've had since, like I said, 2021. It's ridiculous. So, there's a lot of questions that still need to be answered. I think there's a lot of conversations that Clint Kubiak, John Spytek, and Maxx Crosby will have. And I think the defensive coordinator, whoever they hire, I think that's going to go a long way in determining if Maxx is around as well. But it sounds like they want to make sure that he sticks around. Ultimately, it could come down to Maxx just saying, yeah, I need to go somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, and you mentioned it perfectly in there. Like, their timelines don't match up,
Yeah.
I mean, you obviously there is the sell of like, hey, we've got this offensive genius coming in. We've got the quarterback, you've seen turnarounds like this, and we kind of want you to be a part of this. And he's obviously been very loyal to the Raiders. Like, this could have happened a couple of times in the last few years as one of the, right there with Myles Garrett as the premier pass rusher in the league. So here's this. We saw the Micah Parsons deal last year. We saw what that cost Green Bay to go out and get him. He's a couple years younger than Maxx, but they're all in that same ilk, right? The Patriots need a pass rusher. That might be at the top of their list. For all the talk about the offensive line during the Super Bowl, we also saw a team that got in Sam Darnold's grill a lot and couldn't bring him down. So Maxx Crosby can certainly help with that. If he is moved, what do you think the return looks like for the Raiders?
Well, everybody's saying that it's the Micah Parsons deal. I'm a little skeptical on that, only because he's older. He's been banged up a little bit. But all it takes is one team to really feel desperate enough that hey, we're one Maxx Crosby away from winning a championship. And they might. And the Micah Parsons deal was a 2026 first-round pick, 2027 first-round pick, and also Kenny Clark. It's a 3-time Pro Bowler. So you're getting a player and 2 first-round picks. I don't know if a team's willing to do that. The other thing about this is there's not going to be a team that's picking in the top 10 that is going to make that move, because they're picking in the top 10 for a reason, right? So you're looking at a team like New England. You're looking at a team like Buffalo. You're looking at a team that was a playoff team like Chicago. So is it worth it if you're the Raiders? Is that, number 31 overall pick? Is that worth it? Because that's a second-round pick as far as I'm concerned, right? I mean, I know it's the back end of the first round, but it's just about a second-round pick. The only thing you're doing is getting that 5th-year option. So there's things to weigh. Like, is that going to be worth it? Or is it a team that, like I said, is picking in the, top 12, top 15? Obviously, that's where you like to go, like the Cowboys, right? They have, 2 first-round picks this year? It would make sense for them, but are they a Maxx Crosby away from winning a championship? So I think there's a lot of reasons to think that he could be moved, and it sounds all great, a couple first-round picks, but I think the Raiders will look at it and say, I don't know if that's really worth the price of admission, moving on from a great player when the team doesn't have enough great players in the organization as it is. I think they need to hold on to as many as possible. So it's one of those, I've been telling people, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think he's going to get traded, but when push comes to shove, you never know when they sit down together what can ultimately happen. But to me, my gut feeling tells me he's not going to be on the move.
Mm. Let's latch on to that. Okay. If I had to put it number between 1 and 10, 10 being he's definitely going, 1, no way. Where are you putting the concern level?
I would put it around 4. Just to be real about it, I put it around a 4. Like I said, I think the other thing about it is Max loves the Raiders, and he has a great relationship with Mark Davis, the owner. And so I know that he wants to win with the Raiders, but I also know that he wants to win. You know what I mean? So I feel like he's in a really bad situation. The Raiders aren't that close to winning a championship. You know, they have to find a way to get to the playoffs consistently. He's been in the league, 7-8 years, whatever the case is, since 19, and they've been to the playoffs once. You know what I mean? So it's like he really wants to win, but I know he wants to do it with his team here in Vegas with the Raiders, but if it's going to be 3 more years, is it worth it to him? You know what I mean? And so that's where it's really going to kind of come into play. And does this help accelerate the Raiders as far as building their roster? Could they get some draft capital that makes it worth it to them? Again, I don't know how valuable a number 31 overall pick is outside of getting that 5th-year option. I really don't, because that's not, that's not that high pick. Maybe you trade up to go get another impact player in the first round. Maybe you can use that, to that skill set level. But I just don't know if it's worth it in that locker room when you have a guy like Max that is that leader. All of a sudden, for the other players to say, "Hey, man, they just sent the best player that we have on the roster somewhere else." Are they really serious about trying to win here? So, you kind of compare and you contrast, and you just weigh the pros and cons in this situation. And again, that's why I kind of put it at a 4, because my gut feeling tells me it's not going to happen. But there could be some wild offer that a team makes, maybe the Patriots, maybe others, that sways them one way to make a decision.
And I know this isn't like the end all be all of a trade when you do a trade, but to your point about the 31st overall pick, like, you're not getting a better guy than Maxx Crosby,
right?
And probably not even 3 years down the line are you getting a better guy than Maxx Crosby. This is a guy who was the best in the league basically at his position, and it's an important position, and he's in his prime. So that is definitely something to take into account from the Raiders side of things too. And Q, I feel comfortable asking you this because you do such a great job covering the whole league, specifically on game night, which I listen to all the time. So looking at, obviously this is Patriots right at the top of the wish list. Someone like Maxx Crosby, right? Just absolutely fills a need. We heard that Crosby had interest in playing for Mike Vrabel, which kind of puts them at the top of the list. Would the Patriots be the best suitor if you take all things involved? And you mentioned a couple of teams in a few answers back, but what are some of the other teams that could or should be involved if this does if they do put Maxx Crosby on the trade block?
I mean, I think a lot of teams should be involved. The 49ers, I think, should be involved, right? They have a lot of injuries on the defensive side of the ball.
Few sacks in the league this year. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So I think that the 49ers would be a great location. I think Detroit would be a great location. Buffalo would be a great location. Chicago, Dallas, the Patriots. I mean, look, there's a lot of teams that could make a strong case for why they need to go after Maxx Crosby, right? I mean, there's a case that Seattle could make. They're the Super Bowl champs, and they can say, you know what, we could bolster that front four even more by having this dude over here. You know what I mean? So I don't think there's too many teams that it wouldn't be a good fit with, except for I know that he wants to win. So then you start looking at, okay, is a team like the Cowboys, are they really close? Like someone said the Jets, and I was like, well, he might as well be a Raider if he's going to go to the Jets. Like,
right.
What are you doing?
At least keep the weather and the no state income tax. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, there's just certain teams that don't make sense. The Rams, I can see them making a move. They're a team that makes sense, but that's who it's got to be, man. It's got to be someone that you feel like can really make have an opportunity to go win a championship. And I said something the other day that I know Raider Nation didn't want to hear, but looking at the top 10 of the draft, there's a team, the Giants, I think they're picking at number 5. Maybe the Giants would be a team just because of Harbaugh that feels like they're a little bit closer, but I was like, don't really feel comfortable there. But then I saw the Chiefs at number 9. I was like, oh, that would be disgusting, right? To see Max go to Kansas City, but you know that they need to retool.
Yeah,
and as long as they got 15, they've got an opportunity to go and win a championship every time. That would be gross. There's been a lot of, just kind of swapping of teams between the Raiders and the Chiefs over the years. I mean, you go back in the history of the two teams, there's been a lot of Rich Gannon was a Chief. Marcus Allen ended up with the Chiefs. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of different, coexisting between the two teams. But, man, I know Raider Nation would be sick to see Maxx Crosby out there in Chiefs red.
That would be unprecedented. Like that would be like a guy in his prime that could take your rival back to a championship level. There's almost no cost like that. I don't know if that's worth it at any level. All right, Q, since I got you here, I do want to ask, obviously you follow the league all season long. You're on the West Coast. So I don't know how much Patriots you're getting, but you're watching all the teams all season long. Didn't come through in the Super Bowl. Drake Maye did not have a good game. And now everyone's saying, hey, they point to these guys who lost the first time around and don't ever get back. Just from someone who follows the league as closely as you do and seeing Drake Maye, do you have confidence that that's a team that will get back there? Or do you think this was a little too much fluke going on?
No, I think they'll get back. I have a lot of faith in Mike Vrabel. He's a hell of a coach. I know the guys in Tennessee are probably sick, right? Because they let him go. They let him out of the building, right? Which didn't make any sense when they did it. I like Mike Vrabel a lot. I think Drake Maye is a hell of a quarterback. I know that the schedule was a, what do they say, softer schedule, whatever. They still went out and won a bunch of games after only winning 4 games the year before. I like the dynamic that they have. I think they're going to continue to get better. Josh McDaniels is not a very good head coach, but he's a really good OC. There's no doubt about that. If you deny that, you're just in denial with yourself because the proof is there. The defense continues to evolve. Christian Gonzalez was one of my favorite players coming into the draft when he did. You saw what he did in the Super Bowl. He really kept the Patriots in the game by making some big plays. So I think they'll be fine. That division. I think Buffalo is sick right now because they thought that they were going to have a stranglehold on that division for a while. Then all of a sudden, here come the Patriots and steal the division and end up in the Super Bowl. Made the Bills go and fire their head coach. So I think that they'll be fine. I think it'll be a back and forth between the Bills and them in that division. I don't know what the hell's going on in Miami with the Dolphins. So I guess we'll just wait and see on that situation. And that's. I think the Patriots are gonna be fine, man. They might not go back, every year to the playoffs like they're in the Super Bowl like they did when they were a dynasty, but they look like they're heading the right direction. They're probably only going to get better from here.
And I don't feel as bad saying this next part because I think there are brighter days for the Raiders coming soon here. But any success that Drake Maye has, there's a little modicum of thanks for the Raiders for giving Josh McDaniels essentially a third try at being a head coach, because now no one's sniffing him. No one is sniffing him to try and hire him, and he could just be Drake Maye's offensive coordinator. Q Myers of ESPN Radio, Locked On Raiders. Thank you so much for giving us the time, man, and giving us the lowdown on this whole Maxx Crosby situation from someone who is so close to it. Q, really appreciate it.
Hey, no problem, man. Thanks for having me on. We'll have to do it again.
We'll have to. There he goes, Q Myers, foremost expert on the Raiders, and very close to our hearts for our people in Central Texas. My producer, Zach, very close with old Q from his work in Waco as well. So let me know what you guys think. I was honestly a little surprised. I thought that there was going to be more traction for a Maxx Crosby trade out there in Vegas, but Q is there, and he's saying, don't count on it. It makes a lot of sense from the outside, and this is why we bring the experts in. And he laid out a couple of good reasons as to why this probably won't happen. But man, if Buffalo sneaks in, that's really bad news bears for the Patriots. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What's the trade package going to look like? How confident are you that the Patriots can make this trade? And can they put up a better package than Buffalo? Let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. We come at you 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, live on YouTube, and then wherever you get your podcasts as well. Dropping videos on YouTube every day of the week, by the way. So you can find our channel all 5 days of the work week and get your lunchtime alternative to Boston Sports Talk Radio. It's right here on the Wicked Boston Show with Cam Stuart on 365 Sports. We have talked Patriots for weeks and weeks and weeks, and yet the Red Sox, the day after the Super Bowl, were moving and shaking. They think they have their Alex Bregman replacement. Why they're delusional, next on the Wicked Boston Show.
Blackmore Bar and Kitchen, located in Charlestown, is the perfect spot for a bite and drink before a Bruins or Celtics game at TD Garden. Blackmore Bar and Kitchen offers 34 rotating beers, craft cocktails, and an eclectic menu of tavern favorites like burgers, sandwiches, and flatbreads. Join us for brunch every Saturday and Sunday, plus pre- and post-game garden events. Blackmore Bar and Kitchen. Check us out at blackmorebar.com.
At 4U Health, we believe wellness and lab testing should be accessible, inclusive, and yes, fun. With our tech-powered at-home lab test, you save time and money while feeling your best. 4U Health. Visit 4uhealth.com today. With a focus on performance, design, and customer service, we're here to help you work smarter, not harder. Join us on our journey to simplify your world. Visit acasis.com today. That's ACASIS.com today.
Apollo Neuro is a new kind of wearable that helps your body recover from stress, that helps you calm down and feel better. You sleep better, and you can get back to being yourself. Learn more at apolloneuro.com.
But boy, it looked effortless.
Man, watch this.
Layups, floaters, threes. He was like an unsolvable equation.
I was born like this.
His resilience, his strength, his belief, adversity never stood a chance.
Know your power.
Introducing Muck-Off's classic pink bike cleaner, powered by revolutionary nanotechnology that breaks down dirt and grime on a microscopic level while protecting your bike's delicate finish. us.muc-off.com.
The U-Like Air 3, launched in 2023, ushers in a new era of sapphire ice cooling technology, offering nearly painless hair reduction in just 3 weeks. That's ULIKE.com. U-Like.
Back here on the Wicked Boston Show, 365 Sports, as we are every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You're in the show live at 1 p.m. Eastern, and then wherever you get your podcasts as well. This is a good point from the comment section. Good point. I am not Turbo Duran. I am not watching the Seahawks championship parade today. Shame on me. Shame on me. I will say, like, this could have been a lot worse, even though the performance sucked, because, like, man, I don't hate the Seahawks. I don't. You know, losing to the Eagles stunk. Losing to the Giants really stinks, right? But they were the better team. You could tip your cap to them all day. I like Sam Darnold. He obviously didn't play terrific in that game, but what a redemption story. Not that I'm happy or anything, but, like, yeah, it could be a lot worse. Good for the Seahawks, man. They deserve to win. They were the better team all season long, better roster, and outcoached the Patriots big time in that game. I think that was probably the most disappointing part of it was Josh McDaniels' game plan. I still believe he's the right guy for Drake Maye long term. But yeah, it was tough. So no, I'm not watching. I'm not watching it. Turbo also doesn't like McDaniels. He had a bad game. I don't think Maxx Crosby said the Patriots suck in the last couple of weeks, but I could be wrong. I mean, he said he wanted to play for Mike Vrabel. So I'm going to go off of that. And I did want to talk real quick before I get into the Red Sox. This Jason Tatum thing. I'm still trying to figure out what's happening with Jason Tatum. And I know I can't be the only one. All season there was rumors that he was going to come back and then not. And then, you know, he's reevaluating the situation. Now he's doing 5-on-5. He's doing practices with the Maine Celtics. Just trying to figure out what exactly is going on with Jason Tatum and whether he's going to come back. Because what a boost that could be. Like, he's not going to come in and be a starter, but he can absolutely be a big piece for the Celtics off the bench. And I know that sounds crazy. We're talking about a top 5 or 6 player in the league, but with coming off the injury, where he could be huge for them is they need some help defensively. I think they got better at the deadline, but they didn't get better defensively. They traded a net negative in Anthony Simons for a net negative defensively with Nikola Vucevic. And he's a good player. I really like Vucevic. I think he's going to fit the system well offensively. I think he's a good ball mover. But what Tatum can give you if he comes back is a guy who can defend 1 through 5. And we've seen him. I mean, when he's got it going, he is one of the best defenders in the league at his position. He really is, whether people will admit it or not. I think he should have been an all-defense guy a couple of times in his career. But I am going to move off of Tatum. I'm going to move off of the Tatum thing because I do want to talk some baseball. I want to talk about the Red Sox in particular. As we were all wallowing in the mire of the Patriots losing the Super Bowl, the Red Sox were out there to make their team championship caliber. The Red Sox have their Alex Bregman replacement. At least they think so. No, it's not Alex Bregman. It's Caleb Durbin. I feel like the meme of like the Five Guys, right? Where the kid's just eating the peanuts. He's like, kid wants Five Guys. We don't have Five Guys money. You want Alex Bregman. We don't have Alex Bregman money. Can I interest you in Caleb Durbin instead? That's the big move the Red Sox made this week. They needed a guy to play third base to replace Alex Bregman. They needed a middle-of-the-order bat, right-handed with some pop to replace Alex Bregman. What they got was Caleb Durbin from the Milwaukee Brewers, which I'm not going to lie to you guys. I've had to look up that name about 6 or 8 times in the 2 days since they've made that trade just to remember it. I mean, it sounds like if you went to college in the South, it sounds like half your classmates. Caleb Durbin. Caleb Rhett Durbin. Probably what he goes by. Here's the thing. I'll get the positive out of the way because Caleb Durbin's a nice, solid player. He is, and he finished 3rd in the NL Rookie of the Year last year for a good team in the Milwaukee Brewers. That was a team that was kind of putting stuff together all season long, especially offensively. And Caleb Durbin was a big part of that. You know, he's about a 3-WAR player. His stats are not going to jump off the page at you. In fact, he was a bang average league average hitter at a 101 OPS plus. So he is a replacement level player. The problem is when you look at it from the 30,000 foot view, which you have to do, when you look at it big picture wise, Caleb Durbin has big X's next to 2 things. First thing is he's still kind of quasi part of the Rafael Devers deal because one of the guys you sent back was Kyle Harrison to Milwaukee. The other thing is he is coming in to replace Alex Bregman. He's going to play either 2nd or 3rd, probably 3rd, and that is Alex Bregman's position, the guy that you let walk, guy who was an all-star last year, who was worth more wins than Caleb Durbin, who had an OPS plus 27 points higher than Caleb Durbin. You're playing long ball here with Durbin in terms of his tenure, not of how far he can hit the ball. But he's a guy who puts the ball in play a lot, great strikeout rate, but he's not Alex Bregman. And that's fine. You're not going to get another Alex Bregman. But the problem is he's not really close to Alex Bregman. And the real problem is you haven't added anyone into that lineup that is going to replace Alex Bregman. You went into this offseason, you went into this offseason knowing that you needed to get a middle-of-the-order right-handed power bat. You needed that even when it looked like you were going to re-sign Alex Bregman. You didn't. You let him walk. And you still haven't really gotten that. Contreras is a nice addition to it, for sure. But according to Fangraphs, there's only one team in MLB that's not projected to have a 20 home run hitter this year, and it's the Boston Red Sox. And they only had, 2 last year? And I get it, William Abreu was out for the last month or so of the season. But Trevor Story was your only guy, and I don't think they had a 100 RBI guy for the whole season. That was a huge reason they got bounced as early in the playoffs as they did. Caleb Durbin does not solve that issue. So in an offseason where you were apparently in on Isaac Paredes, Ketel Marte, Nico Horner, Matt Shaw, all of whom, except for Horner, were sluggers at some point. You were in on all those guys, and then Chris Cotillo was saying they went with this deal in part because it didn't include sending guys like Duran and Connolly early out the door. This is what you're going to get then. But this is what fascinates me about the Red Sox, and not in the good way. You went into this offseason knowing you had a ton of trade pieces, one of which being Jarren Duran, who was just surplus parts at this point, and you weren't willing to go out and get a more dependable, better fit at third base because you didn't want to trade Jarren Duran. Like, how does that make any sense? You didn't go out and trade for a top-of-the-line starting pitcher. You didn't go out and trade for the true right-handed power bat that you needed in the middle of your order. You didn't sign guys in the middle of your order. But now you're telling me you're doing it because you don't want to trade Jarren Duran? How does that add up? Jarren Duran's the best trade piece you have. He's literally a bonus at this point. So who isn't going to play every day? Wilyer Abreu, Roman Anthony, Cedar Rafaela? And that's not even getting to Masataka Yoshida, who isn't going to play every day. You've got a logjam, and yet you're not willing to trade one of your logjam guys for one who does fill a hole in your lineup. Durbin, nice year. 136 games, hit under 260, drove in 53. OPS was at 721. It's nothing special. He can play second or third. Nice. But what that still means is Marcelo Mayer is playing the other position that Caleb Durbin is not. Marcelo Mayer has proven to you in professional baseball he can't play 100 games in a season. So you're one pretty reasonable Marcelo Mayer injury away from having Romy Gonzalez playing the infield every day again. Or Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. You're not getting better. That's what I'm saying. You're not getting better. Like, Durbin is a nice player, and he might be able, he might be able to be a good little piece for you for the next couple of years. Everyone's going to be talking about how he's Dustin Pedroia type. Like, Dustin Pedroia in his second year in the league was winning the MVP. In his first year, he was finishing first in Rookie of the Year. He was a Gold Glove player. Caleb Durbin is not that, okay? And then I get worried about trading with Milwaukee, trading a pitcher, even though I don't think Kyle Harrison's very good. But that's the same thing I thought about with Quinn Priester. And then he went to Milwaukee last year when they were desperate for starting pitching, and he becomes genuinely one of the best pitchers in the National League. When you look at what he gave them in, albeit about 160 innings, 13 wins, a 3.30 ERA, a 1.25 ERA plus. He was a damn good pitcher on a playoff team that knows how to develop these guys. So I do get a little wary when a team that is pretty good at developing young talent, like Milwaukee, is willing to not only trade their starting third baseman, but apparently the other two third basemen they had in the depth chart to get your spare part starting pitcher that you were willing to get rid of because he hasn't given you anything, and you also traded Rafael Devers for him. I'm concerned about that, just like I was concerned at the trade deadline last year when the Los Angeles Dodgers were more than willing to part with one of their starting pitchers in a pennant run. And how did Dustin May turn out? So, again, to recap, it's not a bad deal in a vacuum. I don't think you were going to do anything with Kyle Harrison. Okay? And Caleb Durbin does fit a quote-unquote need right now in that you hit a ground ball to third base, now you have someone to field it. But this did not really fix any of the holes in your lineup, which is what is key for the Red Sox right now. They didn't get better, I don't think, with this deal. Because you still let Alex Bregman walk at the end of the day, and that is still part of it. That is still part of all of this. But anyway, man, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Comment section's blowing up live right now. But let me know what you think about the Caleb Durbin deal and this Red Sox offseason as a whole. Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. We come at you 3 days a week and dropping videos every day on the YouTube channel, but we go live at 1 p.m. Eastern time and then we're available wherever you get your podcasts as well. It is your lunchtime alternative to Boston Sports Talk Radio. It is the Wicked Boston Show with Cam Stewart here on 365 Sports. So thank you guys for tuning in, especially this great live crowd that we've got going right now. Keep it buzzing, fellas, and we'll see you on Friday for it on the next episode of the Wicked Boston Show with Cam Stewart.
Relax with Hemp Delicious. Organically grown hemp, massively blended with delicious organic herbs, responsibly sourced for their holistic benefits. Each sip offers calming, antioxidant-rich wellness. Brewed just for you. Sip the calm with Hemp Delicious.
At Open Goal USA, we're revolutionizing training for both soccer and lacrosse with our innovative portable rebounders. Perfect for players of all ages and skill levels. Visit OpenGOAAALUSA.com and elevate your training today.
Farmhounds offers natural treats and chews made with quality products that support family farm, regenerative agriculture, and humane farming practices. Give your dog the best with wholesome, organic ingredients that promote health and happiness. Shop now at farmhounds.com.
Get paid faster with Bill, the easiest way to send, receive, and manage your payments. No more delays, no more hassle. Whether you're a freelancer or a business, Bill makes payments seamless and secure, simple, fast, and reliable. Sign up today at Bill.com. We are Rogue Media Sports.